Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. Now, before we begin, because in 2019, YouTube was caught data mining the information of underage users, therefore violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, they reached a settlement with the United States government, and implemented new policy meant to dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators, meaning I have to ensure that everybody understands that this video is not meant for children. It is not marketed towards kids. It is not advertised towards kids. Doctor Who is a family show that kids can watch, but this video, as with all the videos on my channel, are looking at it from an adult perspective, and therefore, adult themes and topics will be discussed. Viewer discretion is advised. Alright, it is the 20th of January 2021, and we are starting a look at the Kingmaker. This is another Nev Fountain script. I say that because it's a script that is very much focused on comedy and doing something different. It's telling a historical story through a modern lens, though through a comedic modern lens. The conceit here is that, the entire, the past, we don't ever actually know what the past is like. It could have been a completely modern sort of quote unquote past, with things like barmaids hustling their wares like a solid like a modern barmaid, and offering specials where they will offer to sit on your lap, which is very, very fun, and also give you a spanking. It's a very modern story, and it's taking a look essentially at William Shakespeare's Richard III, perception of Richard III, and turning it on its head. The historical Richard III was most likely not an actual villain. The history books say this. He was very probably a decent enough king, though, because he wasn't a Tudor, and it was, the Tudor, and it was called Tudor, and then eventually Stuart died. Stuart, I believe, the Stuart dynasties of England, with Queen Elizabeth I and James the first, or well, technically sixth if you're Scottish. That was all propaganda, and the premise here is that the Doctor is tracked down by a publisher from his time in exile on Earth, from the future, that he needs to publish a new Doctor Who Discovers book. It's a funny little conceit where the Doctor is being forced to write a book, basically because well, he's sort of being cajoled into it, which is hilarious, honestly. It's a really funny, sort of thing, where you have the Doctor being like, "Oh, I need to find my I need to find my whole my 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 story. It's a very different story because of that. You have just this different perspective, where you have something very, very weird and very, very different, because this is all building up to to Peri and Erimem being separated by the Doctor by 3 years in the past while he's in the future. Richard is, we're leading up to the basically events of Richard III. You sort of know the story, but you don't. And this is one with the stellar cast. John Colshaw appears as the Fourth Doctor for 2 seconds. Vori ends up taking on a different role. But then, Michael Fenton Stevens plays this villainous Mr. Seaton, who is kind of a send-up of the Master. He has a time machine, and he's interfering. We have stuff that is different. There are, 2 barmaids who are really fun. Stephen Beckett plays Richard III, who is really, really good. He's that's really the standout performance as Richard III. Is this very different character. He's not your standard sort of character where you have something different. It's such a different thing, and I absolutely love it. The humor here is great. Nev Fountain just hits the jokes and hits it running so much, where other authors perhaps would be less inclined to do so, because this is such a different type of story where you're playing around with time. Peter Davison is great as he sort of plays the Doctor as this completely aloof character where he's like, what's going on exactly? He doesn't he doesn't know what's going on, and he's trying to determine to prove everything wrong. Though the best scenes with Peri and Erimem are at the very beginning of one of the best jokes. They're seeing Richard III be performed in previews, and the audience hates it. This guy grabs Erimem on the butt. Erimem then just reacts by breaking his arm. With this great line of, "Peri, is it a normal form of greeting at this time period?" No, it's not. So, he breaks his arm. Erimem's a badass. That's what I'm trying to say. There are just so many good zingers and one-liners that this story is just really, really good. So overall, this is kind of hard. This is kind of hard to score. But yeah, I'm gonna have to give the Kingmaker Part 1 a 10 out of 10. Okay, it is the 21st of January 2021. I just finished listening to Part 2 of the Kingmaker. Another absolutely brilliant episode. This is just a great one. I'd like to say I love the direction and editing on the story in particular, because it is so good at flipping really quickly back and forth from the Doctor to Peri and Erimem, back to the Doctor, because having that time gap means that these characters have to basically go through their own basically go through their own little stuff with the characters. It's a lot of fun. It's a really a really, really good sort of thing where the story moves around with things. I love what this story just kind of does. Um, this is, a very, very different sort of story where the story is this there's this back and forth of, okay, so Peri and Erimem the doctor is told by the owner of this tavern, the Kingmaker, that Peri and Erimem were his best serving wenches, and and they were eventually taken out and replaced by family, because family. So that means Peri and Erimem now have to stay as serving wenches. It's playing around so much with time and time travel and what that means, because this is a story where time travel is not only a thing but an important thing. They have to keep the timelines intact and the like, whilst while the doctor is just sort of trying to find his family, his two best friends. Now, the doctor side of things, he gets captured and tortured, which has some amazing things where he follows Clary, who meets with Sir James Turrell, and then there's this royal concussor who he just has this nice conversation with before getting slapped on the head, and that gag happens more than once, which is a lot. It's a lot, but it's really, really funny. It is one of the best. It's one of the best stories because of just this humor that Nev Fountain puts into every scene. There's so much wit, like again, in this episode, Clary gets his arm broken because, well, he hugs Erimem and gropes her again. And, we already established Erimem does not take kindly to that. When the doctor asks for a room, it's, if you could you please, it's like, oh, just go upstairs. There's there's a great line of, I wouldn't possibly deprive a friend of not paying me, which, just wordplay like that really makes this episode shine so much. It's one good line after another, just as the story progresses into, and each line is being done so well. Because there's stuff with, there's stuff with, all of these characters. Peri and you have the doctor trying to figure out, okay, what happened to the princes in the tower, because they're somehow being seen after history tells them that they shouldn't have been seen, which is, again, hilarious and a really, really good sort of thing. It's a very, it's such a different, such a different thing for the story to be this big different thing, while Peri and Erimem are are captured and forced to leave and put in charge of the princes who are put in the tower, and then basically told to kill them. Not by Richard III. Richard III isn't evil. Stephen Beckett plays him as kind of this. He's sort of started doing a Ninth Doctor-y performance, which is kind of funny because apparently the Ninth Doctor has an involvement. The Ninth Doctor went and delivered the letters that the Fifth Doctor wrote for Peri and Erimem, which I again find hilarious. It's at that point where Nev Fountain is just clearly having so much fun writing this story in particular, that it becomes such a really, really good story to tell, and one that I think, everyone really should listen to. So overall, this is, it's no surprise that part 2 of The Kingmaker is gonna have to get another 10 out of 10 because it is hilarious, hitting each point really, really nice. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for part 2 of The Kingmaker. Okay, it is the 21st of January 2021. Yeah, we are still getting these on a roll. And I finished listening to part 3 of The Kingmaker. This third episode is just as brilliant as the others, if not more. This is an entire story that knows how to hit the comedy, mix it with drama, and just create something amazing with the story that it's trying to tell. I absolutely love just everything that this story does and build up to, because the last episode was a lot on Peri and Erimem, and this one is also a lot. This one more so is almost almost is that the Doctor tries to find Peri and Erimem for 30 minutes and almost fails at the end. There's some great stuff where Peri and Erimem try to make their escape, find their way out, and they aren't able to because they immediately get captured. Whoops, sorry. It's little tongue-in-cheek things like that make The Kingmaker so good. But also, The Kingmaker is a story full of characters who are honestly amazing. You seriously feel the love of who these people are, basically throughout the entire story, because, well, this is, everyone is so intriguing. Richard III isn't the villain, isn't this big shouty villain. He has a mysterious benefactor who is, hinted at to be the master up until the very end of the episode, where you have an amazing cliffhanger that pulls that rug out from him. It's like, no, it's not the master, it's someone else entirely. Someone that you actually get very surprised with. William Shakespeare. Yeah, that's the cliffhanger, that, no, the guy who's been, causing all these troubles, not the master, William Shakespeare. Which is that is such a good twist. It is so funny, and you think, wait, what? It makes sense that Shakespeare would be interested in why, in trying to find why, in interfering with history like this with Richard III, because Shakespeare, probably wants to be accurate, and he's played by he's played so brilliantly by Michael. I want to say it's Michael Fenton Stevens, and yeah, Michael Fenton Stevens, who plays him so well, and you just get just twist after twist, like, oh, the princes in the tower actually aren't dead. No, instead, the two serving wenches that replaced Peri and Erimem, those were actually the princes in the tower. Uh, dressed up as women, to be hidden. And you basically have it to try to find, like, okay, here's how we're gonna sort of find these characters and do something different. And I absolutely love just how this story plays with those expectations. You think it knows, right? It knows how to do a subversion well, because sometimes you hear, oh, a story subverted expectations, that must mean it's bad. No, this is a subversion of expectations that was really well done and well thought out, and built really well, built upon really, really well. Like, you have the characters being fun characters and doing different things. It's such a different sort of story because of that, where you don't have everything going on, and Peter Davison is great, just as the as the character goes on, you know, uh, it's such a different type of story for Peri and Erimem to have to play these honestly weird roles where you don't know who they are, but it's such, it becomes such an interesting time to for them, as they're just, as they are, these, so totally taken out of time and so totally different. It makes this such a sparkling thing. Gary Russell's direction in particular is also great. Like, one of the, it keeps these very long episodes, because all of these episodes are long, like really long. It's long episodes, but they're long episodes with a purpose, where that they build up to some sort of a conclusion, and of course, the conclusion is gonna be something so interesting and something so fun. This is a really just a fun story, and it plays with the dark stuff. I mean, you also have John Coleshaw, not only playing the Fourth Doctor for a couple of scenes, but just playing a completely different character, in the Earl Rivers, who is great. It's a star-studded cast, and it's one of Big Finish's best. So, overall, I'm going to have to give Part 3 of The Kingmaker another 10 out of 10. Okay, it is the 22nd of January, 2021. I just finished listening to Part 4 of The Kingmaker. This fourth episode should enrage me. It really should. I say that because, well, this is one where Doctor Who tackles the authorship question. Now, if you don't know, the authorship question is this idea that William Shakespeare couldn't have written the works of William Shakespeare, basically because he wasn't upper class. It's essentially rooted in classism, and I don't take that term lightly, because it is, it's a very, very different thing, to really examine, because, you don't expect it to be a thing, but it is, which is genuinely kind of sad, because this is such a different story, that you have Shakespeare being the villain and getting killed in the past at the Battle of Bosworth Field instead of Richard. So Richard takes the place of Shakespeare, and the princes in the tower become Shakespeare's two daughters, which, it's convoluted, but it's hilarious, so I'll let it slide. It's a brilliant farcical comedy that this story is, like, because you've had Richard III, who is completely dictatorial, and, no nonsense, but, actually loves his family. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, this is the episode that explains how they did it. That's really all this episode does, and I love it for that. It's such a different thing that you don't really see it coming, but when it comes and hits, it's hilarious, and you just can't help but laugh at what this story could possibly do to bring together all of this insanity and all of these characters, with the Doctor and Peri and Erimem finding their way around. There's, it's not entirely meant to be taken seriously. It really isn't meant to be taken seriously at all when you think about it. Because, well, this is such a different sort of story, than what you'd usually get. I absolutely, I can't help but praise Nev Fountain's writing, because everything just wraps up so nicely, like, you wouldn't even believe. Like, this is such, there's such a nice wrap up here, where you have a story where the Doctor can have his victory, and you can have everything that this plot wants to be. There's just everything going on here, and I love it. You have all of these characters. It's so fun. Like, you have the robot from part 1 coming back, trying to make the Doctor write his book, which he can't, because he can't write this as the truth. No one would buy it. It's so clearly not something that would actually happen, which of course means it's definitely real, and definitely something, that something that just has to happen. It's such a different sort of story because of that. Where everything was built around this one idea of the Kingmaker, and the pub is there. And it ends with, like, everyone being so chummy now that the villain's defeated. Also, I love the Doctor's just shoot down a pair. It's like, no, he's not the Master. It's far dumber than that. The Master isn't even this dumb, which is funny considering Peri's only met the Ainley Master, and kind of only meets the Ainley Master. We'll get to that eventually when we get into the Sixth Doctor at some point where she kind of then doesn't. But it's such it's just this really fun adventure where the characters are just sparkling with wit and charm, and at every turn we finish on such a high note where the Doctor is allowed to have his own life. It's like everyone promises never to speak of this again. The princesses in the tower, because they're actually two princesses, and there's this whole thing of, no, we couldn't just I couldn't just tell them once the old king had died that, no, they're actually princesses. No, so I had to do this whole thing. And Richard III is ready to die at Bosworth Field. Like, he is ready to go full ham with it. And it's Stephen Beckett plays it really well. But then when the rug gets pulled, as rugs are meant to do, you get just that real sense of, oh, he does deserve to live, and you feel like Shakespeare doesn't deserve to be the famous writer that we know and I guess love. Because Shakespeare was terrible and a terrible person. Everyone is just sort of enamored with this conclusion. It's a wonderful job for the story, because it's one of those things. It's just a story that feels right. It ends up being a comedy and being farcical and telling essentially a pure historical. I mean, Shakespeare has Dalek and Cybermen weapons and things, which is also kind of hilarious, but it turns it on its head. So, Nev Fountain is just so good. So overall, I'm going to do The Kingmaker Part 4 out of 10. That being said, we add up the scores and average them out to give The Kingmaker, perhaps the best audio of this era, a final score of a perfect 10 out of 10. Being only the second Peri and Erimem audio to do that. This is one that I think everyone should listen to. It's available on the website for Big Finish website for $2.99 on download, so you really have no excuses. That being said, thank you everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As always, please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell icon so you don't miss an upload, and join me next time when we take a look at the final Doctor Who magazine freebie to feature the 5th Doctor. Well, or at least to be set in the 5th Doctor's era. It doesn't actually feature the 5th Doctor, one that wasn't actually available for free on the Big Finish website except at promotions, which I was able to snap up with Duck, and a story where we actually get to look at once again go to the future Doctor's incarnation with the 7th Doctor, who also doesn't show up, but his companions do, with Doctor Who, the Veiled Leopard.